Activist Nasser Weddady, who we have been talking to throughout this crisis in Egypt. He's a civil rights outreach director for the American Islamic Congress. We appreciate you being here. And so when you asked me before we just went on, you said, do I need to put this away? You have been tweeting like crazy and social networking really for weeks. But how critical is it still? We heard about it being a part of organizing the protests at first, but keeping it up, how critical is it?
It is critical because Twitter has played out both in Egypt and in Tunisia, and before that in Iran. Activists like me have basically dubbed it the news agency of the people. This is how we get information spread out and basically complementing and it's at sometimes guiding mainstream media coverage of the events, providing latest information and context, because what we have seen, and by the way, it has played out somewhat, there's been a shift in the way the Middle East and North Africa have been covered, because you can tell that a lot of the talking heads that came at the beginning of the events, both in Tunisia and Egypt, just like Hosni Mubarak, just some voices from the administration, are behind the times. They are operating with a matrix of the 20th century.
Now you called activists like yourself. Now, are you one of the ones that President Mubarak is calling an agitator?
I can tell you for a fact that I'm not welcome in Egypt. It's not because because I've been known to be a staunch supporter of the activist on the ground and a critic of the dictatorship, the military dictatorship, not only in Egypt but across the Arab world. You have to understand something. I'm 35 years old. My name is highly symbolical. My name is Nasser. My mother named me after Gamal Abdel Nasser, who took over and installed this military regime. My forefathers' generation was excited about this dictatorship, what turned out ultimately to be a massive failure, not only in Egypt but across the Arab world. I come from the other end of the Arab world, and here I am. 35 years later, I'm telling you that the benchmark for the success of this movement is not so much the ballot or the mere act of elections. It's about civil rights, individual rights. If those are not guaranteed by institutions, even if we have elections, everything is meaningless.
Is there that generational gap? You say 35. Yes. So 35 and younger. Those are the ones we're seeing in the street right now.
Yes.
What about those older Egyptians?
They are
right
also
now?
They are in the streets, and they are joining the protest on massive scales. As a matter of fact, they are supporting the protesters, providing food, providing moral support, and even taking to the streets and contributing as well, because they too, I mean, if you quote for example, Dr. Farouk al-Baz, who's someone I highly respect and look up to, the man who mapped the moon for NASA before the landing, he said, my generation was the generation of failure. We failed to take on the regime. You guys are doing it, the youth. And this is beyond Egypt. This is literally the Arab world and Iran.
I want to, for my director, you tell me whatever picture or whatever camera works best. But your group has been putting this out. This, and a lot of people here in this country will recognize it even if they can't read it. But there's a bus here, and people will recognize that's the image of Martin Luther King Jr. Your group has been putting these out and translating them into Arabic for a couple of years now. What role is something like this now playing in Egypt? A message you've been trying to get out for years.
What we're seeing in Egypt is that there is this new generation that absorbed the culture of nonviolence, is inspired by the civil rights movement, both in America but in India, Gandhi. They're looking up to this because what they've learned is that violence is not the solution. And because, by the way, the regime wants the protesters to be violent because that would get international opinion to look the other way, as was happening in the last 30 years. Mubarak has not been called dictator. On Western media has been painted as the moderate Arab regime, which is a moral obscenity. They're whitewashing what otherwise is a thuggish, criminal, murderous set of regimes and rulers, and that's not only Egypt. We're talking here all the Arab states combined, plus Iran.
Well, you hit on that point that many have said, and even previous administrations have said, sometimes we sacrifice democracy for the sake of stability. We don't end up getting either one at the end of the day. Nasser Weddady, it's been a pleasure being able to talk to you. Thank you for coming in this morning.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.